Welcome to another episode of the Go Flush Yourself podcast with Jared Kirk and Matt Milbauer. Hey listeners, I want to thank our sponsor, Bird Hunter Supply, your go-to for premium hunting gear at birdhuntersupply.com. This family-owned business run by a husband and wife team from Idaho is driven by their love for bird hunting, dog training, and the great outdoors. For them, hunting is a treasured family tradition. Think crisp mornings in the field and the thrill of the chase and those irreplaceable moments with dogs, family, and friends. They've built Bird Hunter Supply to share that passion, curating high-quality gear to help you create your own lasting hunting memories with your crew. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned hunter, Bird Hunter Supply has you covered with top-notch equipment from dog training tools to hunting apparel, backed by exceptional customer service to make your experience unforgettable. Best of all, they're deeply committed to preserving the wild spaces we love. When you shop at birdhuntersupply.com, you can choose at checkout to direct a percentage of your order to conservation powerhouses like Pheasants Forever, Rough Grouse Society, or Delta Waterfowl. Your purchase helps these groups protect vital habitats and sustain the wildlife that makes our sport possible, ensuring hunting traditions thrive for generations. Visit birdhuntersupply.com today, explore the carefully selected gear, and support a family-run business dedicated to both hunters and the outdoors. That's birdhuntersupply.com. Gear up, hunt with purpose, and help preserve the wild. Hey folks, we actually have a new sponsor on the show that I'm genuinely excited about, Hunt Ready. If you chase birds like we do, you know a great upland vest is one of the most important pieces of gear you own. Hunt Ready builds tough, modular, ultralight strap vests that are sourced and sewn right here in the USA. Their Deviate and Elevate series use smart, patented designs that actually stay comfortable mile after mile, whether you're carrying birds, water, or extra shells. They're built by hunters for hunters who put in real miles in the uplands. But what really sets them apart, and this is what I'm actually really excited about, is their Pave the Way program. That's Pave the Way. It's a first of its kind initiative focused on getting high quality vests to the next generation of upland hunters. They accept nominations for kids who are fired up about bird hunting and work to help equip as many as they can so those kids can get out there building real memories with their dog, their shotgun, all the things, and a high quality new vest. So if you're in the market for a new vest, or you want to keep helping, upland hunting alive for kids of future generations, or maybe both, check out Hunt Ready at huntready.com. That's Hunt Ready, HUNTREDI.com. Welcome to another episode of the Go Flush Yourself podcast. This is Matt with my co-host Jared. Jared, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Oh, doing good. It's like the fourth Wednesday of the week, but I'm feeling good. I know you can't relate with that, but maybe you can.
Yeah, very true.
Well, we're here today. We're joined with Dennin Harding and Taylor Esvelt. Did I say your last name, Taylor? Did I mess it up?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, cool. Just to make sure I got it right.
Good.
Awesome. Well, and you're here today to talk about, we'll spoil it, Labradors. We've had some folks on here talk about labs. We've had owners of labs on here before, but we've really never done like a deep dive with someone on labs. So why don't you both tell us about kind of how you got into the hunting world, the lab world, kind of introduce yourselves to the audience.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, as you know, my name's Dennin Harding. I grew up hunting, and my parents have always had hunting dogs, not necessarily purebred dogs, but usually Chesapeakes or Labs. And I just pretty much just grew up hunting with those dogs. And ever since I was a little kid, just always had dogs that would work for us and everything. And pretty much when Taylor and I got together, we decided to get a dog of our own, and she was the professional and did all the research and had some friends and everything. And,
first he was like, do you want a Chessie or you want a Lab? And I was like, well, if we get a Chessie, with those hair coats, it's going to be an outside dog. And I like my dogs inside. So I think a Lab is what we're going to go after.
Nice.
So yeah, when we met, has been 12 years ago. We decided to, start looking for labs, and I work out of that clinic. So we had some clients come in, and they had just bred their yellow lab and was like, wow, this is a really good looking lab. And she hunted, and I'm like, we're looking for a lab puppy. And they're like, well, I can give you some more information and we can get you on the list if you want. And I was like, yeah, sweet, cool. This is awesome. And so that was about 10 years ago. And that's when we got our first lab, Berkeley. And she's been great as a first-time dog. She's been so easy to train and good hunter, good house dog, good with people, good with kids, and just pretty easy to train. Didn't do too much training with her other than just for hunting. And then 5 years ago, we got our second lab, Maze, who I started in the hunt test world with. But yeah, I don't see us not having a lab at this point now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, talk to us about kind of, you said you kind of touched on it, and Kelly, maybe this is more for you, but what did that research process look like on finding the right lab for you? Because labs are obviously very popular, and while there is only one type of lab, technically, like there's different strains, I guess I'll say, out there of labs that kind of full spectrum from couch potato to, on crack cocaine. So like, what's the like how how did you decide what quote unquote kind of lab you wanted, and how did you do the research, and how did you find the ones that you end up getting?
So, like I said, when we found Berkeley, it's kind of one of those that just kind of fell onto our laps. Like I said, I really liked the look of the mom, and they showed me the mom was kind of a half showbred, half fieldbred lab. And I know a lot of people talk about like English and American labs, and some people that you talk to will say that's how you call them that, but other people will say no, they're called show versus field. So the show bred labs are your English labs, so the stockier, blockier, shorter, and then your field bred or American labs are your more lankier, faster,
Crack cocaine
labs. So with our first lab, we just kind of were like, yep, those parents look good, and they seem like nice people, and so we're gonna give it a shot. And she's papered and has a decent pedigree. I haven't looked too much into it, but she has some nice lines. And then when we were thinking about getting a second lab, that's when I kind of started like, just doing down the rabbit hole of like, just lab breeders everywhere, and just constantly, of course now on social media, you'll type in labs and you'll keep getting all these different ads for labs and all these pages, and just keep following and clicking on pictures, and, just keep going down the rabbit hole like I tend to do. Funny story, I had actually broke my leg a couple years ago when we were deer hunting, and ended up having to go to physical therapy. And one of the gals there was like, we were talking about lab puppies, and she's like, oh, my friend's a breeder down in Oregon. And I was like, oh, really? And, I'm looking for a pup right now. And she kind of pointed me into that direction. And I talked with that breeder, super nice gal. I still talk with her today. She didn't have a litter at the time that we were looking for a pup, but she pointed me in the direction of the breeder that I got Maze from, in Idaho. Super good breeder. She has just a few litters a year. She does hunt tests. She does hunting. She trains as well. I just did a bunch of research and looked at all her pups and liked those field lines, the look of them, and, looked at the pedigrees. Then I didn't really know anything about them. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of titles on there. I don't really know what they mean, but they look pretty cool. So messaged her and was like, hey, I'm interested in a pup. And she's like, okay, I have, I have this litter that will be on the ground. And then in 2 weeks, I have another litter that will be on the ground. And the difference between those two litters was $1,500. And well, 5 years ago, I was like, holy moly. Well, I'll get the cheaper litter. Like, I don't need to spend that much. And, looking at Mace's pedigree, like, she has a really dang good pedigree. She has tons of field trial champions in her lines, master hunters, pointing. She has a pheasant, U.S. Open pheasant pointing champion of 2001, something like that. But and she's just proven to be a really good dog and proven that, pedigree is a big deal. And I think, if someone's really considering a good hunting dog and a dog that they want to do hunt tests with, I think, you should really look into a decent pedigree. So you just know that those lines will go back and they are proven to hunt and perform.
Yeah. Jared, do you have a question? I heard you say something.
No, just I agree. Like that's
okay.
sometimes I think the dog is sometimes the cheapest part of this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
But starting off with like a good dog with like really good pedigrees and stuff like that just makes everything else so much easier. It's an expensive initial investment, but like at the same time, like I think it pays off in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you end up paying like $10,000 worth of dog food over their lifetime on average. So the cost of the initial dog, unless you're spending that much on the dog, but the cost of most of us are spending on dogs.
That's for a Springer, not a lab.
Maybe it's 20,000 for the lab.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the initial cost, and that plus everything else you buy for your dogs is just a drop in the bucket when you look at it in the grand scheme. So I think you're onto something there. So you kind of said the magic word, and we can wade into those waters. Pointing lab. So you said there's a background in the pedigree where there is a pointing championship titled on one of the ancestors. Does she point, or is that just something that was in there? And kind of what's that look like when you see that in pedigrees? Any opinions on that or experience?
Yeah, so her dad points, and she does point too. I never really pursued any of the pointing training with her, and I regret it, and I wish I would have. I mean, I know you can still teach them to do it. It's just kind of that's not my priority right now. But yeah, she will hold point on birds that are holding really tight in brush, so that's kind of cool. And then usually at that time, when it flushes out, I'm like still in shock of her pointing that I forget to shoot. So luckily Dennin's with me usually. So, but yeah, we have some chickens, and she'll actually stalk them and point them when they're dust bathing, because they like to, when they dust bathe, they kind of flap their wing on their side like it looks like a dying bird to her. So she'll actually stop and point them. She'll point some like rodents too. So it's pretty cool. I know it's one of those things where I know a lot of like pointing people with GSPs. They're like, oh, there's no such thing as pointing labs. And I'm like, well, I beg to differ, because, they do point, but it's a little bit different. So.
Yeah. And like pointing really, it's a stalled pounce, right? Like you can think of animals like cats, and like I'm a little older, but I think of Lion King when I was little, watching Simba like trying to hide in the grass and then pounce, right? And like that's what point is. It's like a stop before you jump onto something from the predator response. So the fact that pointing breeds, versatile breeds have that, and it's like that's in there with the flushing breeds, and probably any animal, any kind of predator, but it's like you can pull that out with genetics over time and training. So it's not that they won't point, right? When people say, "Oh, labs don't point," it's just like a whatever. It's like, no, that's the same kind of point. It's just coming from the same place, that same instinct, I think.
Yeah. And like, I know a lot of people that their labs will point and then they'll teach them to flush after. And I know some people that strictly just want their labs to point and they will go flush the bird themselves. So it's just kind of, training, like you said, like what you want them to do in the field, essentially.
Yeah, and I do hear people, I've heard it said in other podcasts and whatnot, and like if you want a pointing dog, just go get a pointing breed. Well, don't get a pointing lab. But the other side of it is, have you been at home with those dogs? Like it's hard to beat a Labrador in the house. I grew up with labs, and um,
Mm-hmm.
there's some of the sweetest gun dogs you can get. Uh, my springers are
Mm-hmm.
looking at me like I'm talking bad about him. You're sweet to me. But yeah. So I totally get that. Well, cool. We won't go too far into that because there's a lot of like we're kind of bringing up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opinions
Oh, I
on
know.
pointing labs out there in the world. But cool. So what's your kind of day-to-day look like with your labs during the hunting season? I guess not day-to-day, but like what are you chasing with them? Didn't know you're a much bigger waterfowler, right, than maybe upland. And Taylor, you might be more the opposite from what I kind of understand about you too. Is that the case? And how do you split duties with your labs?
Yeah, so usually we would go pheasant hunting on a Saturday and then give that dog a break, and I would take the old dog out on Sundays. That's kind of how it worked with us. But yeah,
Nice.
our dogs will also go shed hunting as well. I mean, they're just so versatile, like you said. But that's kind of what we would do as far as having two dogs and getting them both some action.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our one's 10 years old today.
Oh, wow.
Um, so yeah, we'd kind of split it up that way, and usually pheasant hunt together, and then she's sick of me by that point, and so I I get to go and duck hunt with just me and the old girl on Sundays.
Yeah. And sometimes like our older dog, she ended up having her CCL repaired a year and a half ago. So she was out that hunting season. So May's got some serious action, and I took her pheasant hunting, every weekend. Dennin had to stay home, unfortunately, with the old girl while she was healing, just because I don't know if you know that process of repairing their CCL, but it's pretty intense, and you don't really want them moving around too much for the first few weeks, at least. So I was getting to go out with Maze, just me and her, and it was actually pretty nice because she kind of learned to check in with me a little bit more. I don't know how the springers are, but it seems like with the two labs, they were just kind of in competition with each other when it came to pheasant hunting. And I think that's probably how we taught them because we didn't really know any different. This is only my second like purebred lab that I've ever had. So I'm learning with her, learning, what to do and what not to do for the next one. um, and so, when we taught Mace to pheasant hunt, we were taking her along with Berkeley, and that was great and all. I think I was more concerned, like, oh, I just want her to like, do good, and I want her to be super birdie. Well, she was super birdie to begin with, and little did I know I didn't need to train that in. I just needed to, put some, more stopping on her because she's just so gung ho when it comes to pheasant hunting. So I think that season of just me and her, I think really slowed her down. Like, hey, we can work together. We don't need to run super fast. And so now with Berkeley getting older and having that knee repaired, she's pretty slower. And this was the first season that I said, we're done pheasant hunting with her because she just comes back too gimpy, and it's just too hard to watch. No amount of medications that we can give her are gonna make it better. So we're just duck hunting with her right now, and she's still loving it. She's still kind of sore afterwards, but she still loves it. And we'll take Maze duck hunting as well, but not as often, just because we want to have more of a break between the dogs. I think
Sure.
we hunted a little bit too hard with Berkeley when she was young because, it was our only hunting dog and we were just having so much fun. And I don't want to do that to my future hunting dogs. So I always want to have a couple and be able to rotate them.
Yeah, for
Smart.
sure. Yeah. I have two now, and it does make it easier. One definitely carries more of the action because she can, but it is nice able to put her up for a little bit and bring the other one out when I'm out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. What are they like in the home? So, you have these, especially Mace, because you went and got a dog that had the pedigree that you were looking for and had that DNA, like you were saying, makes the dog more turnkey in the field. But does
Mm-hmm.
that mean that she's not turnkey at home, or how is she at home just on a a Wednesday.
So funny you should ask. When she was a really bad puppy. I'm gonna be honest. We had no idea what we were doing because Berkeley she was an old soul to begin with, and so she was such an easy puppy that when we got Maze, we're like, oh, this is how labs should be. You know, they're chill all the time. Well, that wasn't the case with Maze. She was just ready to play, ready to go, wanting to chase the ball, wanting to chase Bumper, and since I was wanting to enter the hunt test world, you know, I wanted to just train, and all I wanted to do was just, you know, oh, she's ready to go, so let's do another training session. And I think that kind of built up her endurance a little bit as a puppy, which was the wrong thing to do, looking back at it. When she turned about a year old, she kind of started calming down in the house, which was really nice. And then we also started to learn, like, hey, it's good for her to have these quiet times. Like, she doesn't need to always be fetching. So we would essentially put all of her toys up and just kind of force her to relax. And she caught on super quickly that, hey, when we're in the house, we're supposed to just chill and sleep, and, you know, you can walk around and get water, whatever. But I don't want you just running and jumping and biting and being a nuisance to Berkeley and being a nuisance to us. And ever since then, she has been amazing in the house. And she just, like you said, on a Wednesday. Right now I have Wednesdays off. So we go train in the morning on my days off. And then the rest of the day, you know, when I'm running errands or whatever, she's just hanging out in the house. They have free roam. And I know a lot of people and labs don't have free roam of the house, and not every lab is going to be able to have free roam in the house. I think it really depends on each dog, but I think it depends on how you raise them too. You know, we raised both of ours in crates when they were younger and slowly gave them more privileges as far as, okay, you're going to be let out now, and we're going to go outside and, you know, do some weeding for 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back in. And if you're just chill, then maybe the next time we'll extend it to 30 minutes, and so on and so forth. So I would say they're probably about a year old, and then we started toying with the idea of letting them out of the crate when we would, you know, leave the house. And they both have been, knock on wood, really good and never chewed anything up really, besides, like, you know, a few rugs here and there just from who knows what. But
being a puppy.
Yeah, teething.
Yeah.
But they both never really got into anything. Yeah, they've just been super, super solid in the house. Like, very few accidents when they were younger. Yeah, we can leave them in the house all day and nothing will happen.
Yeah, and I come home every day for lunch. So when we were crate training them, you know, they'd be in the crate, and then I'd come home, let them potty and everything, hang out with them, play with them, and then throw them back in the crate, and they'd be perfectly fine. And of course, come back at the end of the day, and they're so excited to see you and everything. But yeah, they did great, great training for us.
Nice. So, well, I guess Jared, does Bones have free roam of the house?
No, he's crate trained.
Yeah. Okay. I was curious because mine are like half and half. It depends. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna leave you out and everything's okay. Sometimes I'm like, you're gonna go in your crates because like you're just having a day, or I'm having a day, or I don't want to deal with something if something goes wrong. I was just curious what you do, Jared.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, he's out during the day, like when I'm home, but outside of that, he sleeps in the crate. So
Nice. Yeah. Cool.
And I really feel like our dogs, you know, especially Maze, they know what day of the week it is. So it's like, you know, I work Monday and Tuesday, and they're more chill. And then Wednesday, you know, I start getting my training gear, and Maze is just at the back door, like, okay, let's go. I know we're training. I know we're doing something. And then Thursday and Friday, we're a little chill again. And then weekend comes around, and she's like, all right, tell me what we're going to do. And she's just, you know, all excited. So I feel like, in the fact that labs are super smart, and they kind of know, like, oh, when you put your work clothes on, like, you're going to work and I'm staying here. And when we put our training clothes on or hunting clothes on, like, we're ready to go.
Yeah, and they get fed every night at 8 o'clock. And I swear sometimes they can tell time.
Yep.
Because it'll be 7:59 and they're bugging Taylor like, hey, let's get some food here.
Hmm.
Our Yorkies they have to eat 4 times a day, like these little meals where their blood sugar gets low and they get all messed up because they're so little. But
Yeah.
we have alarms on our phones to go off every 6 hours. Well, mine doesn't go off at midnight, but my wife's does. But the rest of them, our phones go off, and if one of us is there, we'll feed them. And they when they hear that alarm, they go nuts. It's like Pavlov's dogs, like perfectly. They just like run upstairs. Where's our food? So yeah, I get that. Um, You've brought up a lot of good qualities about labs. Give me what's a downside to owning a lab. If someone said, I wanted to get a Labrador for a bird dog, I've looked at all sorts of different breeds though. What's something you'd say, that's great, but there's this.
You know, I do think I wouldn't say they're too hyper, but that's not the right word. But I mean, even those showbred labs that are lazy and they just want to lay on the couch all day, like they still need like mental enrichment, not
Hmm.
necessarily like physical enrichment, but a lot of people that get labs, they're like, oh, they're a great family dog, you know, they're a great hunting dog, but like you have to put the time in. Like they're not going to just be perfect right from the get-go.
Right.
And like I said, working on a vet clinic, we see a lot of labs that come in that are just super ill-mannered. They're just crazy. Half of them have eaten socks, and we have to do surgery on them to remove the socks. And
Oh,
it's like, people always joke to me. They're like, "Oh, Taylor, you have labs. Like yours must eat socks too." And I'm like, actually, no, they don't, because I work with them, and I don't want them to get to that point to where they're so bored out of their mind that they're going to just
yeah.
turn around and eat stuff. So I think people that have never had a dog or had a lab, like really like do the research before, and like you need to be able to put some time in. And like I said before, pedigree really matters. So if you're getting a pedigree like Mazes, where it's a lot of field trial champions, like just know that pup's going to be a little bit higher strung, and you're going to have to work with it a little bit more than say like one like Berkeley, who's a little bit half and half showbred. But they still need that mental enrichment. They still need to be around people too. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't leave them for days on end and come back and not pay attention to them. They need their people.
Hmm.
Yeah, it seems like Flushing breeds, in my experience and from people we talk to, they're a little more attached to their people on average, and the point people are going to freak out. They don't listen anyhow. This is the Flushing podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but
Very true.
but I think that's my unprofessional opinion and observation is, they have to be connected with you in the field because you hunt together. Where like
Mm-hmm.
there's some pointing breeds, like I grew up with some English pointers too, and they could be kennel dogs. They didn't need to be inside with us. Like they're happy on their own. They're pretty aloof, and in the field,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't really see them until they were on point. And that's so much different with labs and springers and cockers and goldens and whatnot. So like they're so attached to you at home and in the field. And I think that's what a lot of us love about those breeds too, is you get kind of that partnership out of it in a way. It's a different kind of partnership than hunting with a pointing dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Jerry, do you have any other questions?
Um,
Observations?
Observation. No, I've never had lab, so like I'm
That's
not
true.
super familiar with. I had a Chesty, but I've just been around other people's labs, so I'm not super familiar with labs other than I know they're around.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like always that fallback for me. Like for a while I was looking at labs, and then like it's always like, well, I'm looking at a Springer or a Cock or whatever, but it's like, but I know if I need to get a dog that will be a good family dog and be a good hunting dog, I can go find a lab and it'll be great. So it's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things. How how do your dogs go? And maybe this is also for your younger one, Maze. Like how does it go from upland to waterfowl? Is it pretty seamless? It always has been for my labs. I think once they experience it, they seem to be like, okay, I'm pheasant hunting. Okay, I'm duck hunting. Like I'll sit in the blind. Like, or do you see more of we've been pheasant hunting a lot and now we're in the blind and why aren't we searching those weeds over there? Or does she just know?
I think I think for the most part, she just knows, and they have their upland vests that when we get those out, they know that they're going to get some pheasants and they're going to run around. And when we get their neoprene duck vests on, they're going to be sitting in the blind and in some cold water. So I think the only thing would probably be is we always start upland hunting at the beginning of the season, because all the pheasants are out. And as it starts to get colder and the ducks are actually getting pushed in our area, we'll start duck hunting more. And it's always those first couple of hunts, and Maze is just like, you can tell she's just like tapping her feet in the blind, like, come on, get that bird down. And it seems like, she's a little amped up, but once we knock that first bird down, she's usually pretty solid. It's just like up until then, she's like, let me at him. I got him. But yeah, no, they're pretty good. And we have a little duck boat that we use. And she loves going on that. So I think they know, like, oh, the duck boat's getting loaded, then we're going duck hunting. So
yeah.
Have you all made? Oh, go ahead, Dennin.
I was just going to say, the nice thing about Maze is she knows when we're also done duck hunting and when it's been really slow, and she'll help pick up the decoys for us.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Good retriever. So when, and basically a question for you, Taylor, I mean, I might see this in the vet clinic, but we've been having problems last few summers with the blue-green algae in water. And like my younger Springer, she's barely been in the water because every time I want to take her, like, a good water introduction should be nice out. It shouldn't be shockingly cold. It shouldn't be traumatizing. And the best places to do that often are like the places that are being flagged for that blue-green algae. Have you seen anything like that? Have you had problems with that with your dogs in the water at all? Or how are you approaching that as people of waterfowlers and people with dogs that love to swim, I imagine?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I've actually seen blue-green algae. We had a training day with a group over in Moses Lake. I'd never seen it before this, and I want to say it was probably middle to end of June. I can't remember the timing, a couple years ago. And it's always on our mind, being training dogs in the summer, and we were in this little kind of I don't know Moses Lake very well, but kind of this little inlet where the water wasn't moving as quickly. And there's kind of some like algae, scum on the top of the water. And we're all kind of looking at it. And me and this other guy are like, do you know what blue-green algae looks like? And we're both like, no. And it was just green algae. And we're like, okay, well, it seems okay. And so it was pretty early in the morning, started running dogs through. And I kid you not, about 20 minutes later, someone stopped and said, come look at this algae. And it was what we had been looking at prior. And it had turned like a fluorescent, like turquoisey blue color. And it was a, normal green algae color before that. And we immediately stopped running dogs. Everyone got their water out and was just, dousing their dogs with clean, fresh water, and called it into the health department. And they came out, I want to say about an hour or two later, and tested it and said, yeah, that's blue-green algae, and it's at toxic levels. So I'm glad you guys stopped when you did. Roped it off, of course, and put signs out. But the weird thing about it is, they say you're supposed to be able to put like a stick in the water, and it's supposed to kind of like go stay on the stick, like if you were to dip a stick in a paint can. Okay. Because it's not always going to be blue or green in color. That's the unfortunate part. And I think, that time of the year, like you said, when it's getting hot out, it's actually nice to where you want to get in the water, is when you have to start being careful. So anywhere that there's stagnant water, you need to be super careful. Unfortunately, like in Howard Damon Park up in Richland, that's always like one of the first places to get hit. And there's theories of why the blue-green algae is getting worse and worse every year. And I know a big part of it is fertilizer runoff. And I think it was high nitrogen from the fertilizer. So, places that are closer to farms that are having runoff were I'm actually fortunate enough to have these training ponds that a couple of my training group go to, and that'll get hit with blue-green algae about July, August timeframe. And, it's because it's surrounded by farm. So,
yeah.
My dogs have never gotten close to blue-green algae besides that one time. But a couple years back when it was pretty bad, I think it was all over the news, like 6 dogs had died in Tri-Cities due to blue-green algae. That was at the Pasco Emergency Clinic. And thankfully we didn't see any at my clinic. But from what I've heard, it's one of those things where if your dog is exposed to toxic levels, like there's no return from it. It is 100% fatal, which is super scary because it's a neurotoxin. There's nothing you can do to reverse it if it's at that toxic level. So I think just being aware of the time of year is the main thing. And then just, is there going to be a lot of fertilizer runoff where you're swimming in the water? Is it stagnant? Are there other people around there too? That's always another thing. But yeah, I think, like you said, you wanted to try swimming your dog when it's warm out, but and I know that dogs are pretty resilient, so you could probably start swimming your dog a little bit sooner.
That's true.
Maybe put a neoprene vest on.
Yeah.
When we're training, we're just mindful, like if we do it early in the year, we're going to do it at the warmest part of the day, and we're going to make sure it's not super windy, so there's not that wind chill factor. Especially when you're training them to do, like, if it's a new pup or a dog that you're trying to introduce a new concept to in the water, just making sure that it is, as warm as it can be, even though, like I said, they're pretty resilient in the cold.
Yeah, very true. There's a lot with there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, around blue-green algae too, because people are trying to draw connections, and like I've done some deep dives on this because it's just like it's scary hearing dogs dying and knowing our dogs get in the water. But like one is that once it freezes, it's gone, and it's not dependent on temperature at all. I think that when it starts freezing here is when the fertilizer stops running, and we make that correlation, like, oh, it's cold now, ticks are gone, and algae's gone. It's like not necessarily. The algae still could be in the water. In fact, it never leaves the water. But I think the nitrogen and the warm water and sunlight essentially help it bloom and grow, and the warmer waters we've had and the all the runoff has been probably one of the biggest things. But yeah, it's scary stuff. I remember Jared Jared moved to Arizona for a little bit, and moved back up here, a couple years ago, Jared. And
about 3 years ago.
yeah, before you left, that wasn't even something we ever talked about. And when you got back, you and I went hunting, and I had my one Springer, and I don't think you didn't have a bird dog.
Nope.
And we went out to go hunting, and I remember you said it was early season. You're like, "Hey, do you want to go put her in the water?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know. Like, I've seen algae over there, and I'm not messing with it." And like, I realized, like, oh, Jared hasn't been here in a few years, and it's that new of a thing to where it's always been there. It's always been a thing, but like the big danger of it, and every year it happens, and every year we have the health department giving us warnings on it. It's just a scary thing for us bird dog owners, especially duck hunters, and trying to get their dogs in the water.
Well, I know, like a lot of people hunt the river, but there are quite a few different like ponds that people hunt, or like flooded cornfields, whatnot, and that's where we're gonna see most of the blue-green algae is these smaller bodies of water. So like the last few years, we actually haven't even duck hunted like opening weekend or the next weekend. We've just strictly pheasant hunted and kept the dogs away from any water until it starts cooling down and starts to feel a little bit better, just keeping an eye on the water. If you see any type of algae patch, to just stay away. The dogs don't really understand why. No. They're like, why can't we go take a dip in the water? But yeah, we've just kind of stayed away the last few years just because it's just not worth it,
Yeah.
They're our best friends, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
One retrieve is not worth their life, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been like not even shooting birds. They go over the like. I don't even really upland anymore. But when they fly over the water, I'm like, well, it got old.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take a shot at it. Even though my other one would go in the water and retrieve it, but until later in the season, I'm not gonna worry about it. But those early
Yeah.
season, like opening weekend, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, well, on that bright and cheery topic of blue green algae
Yeah.
and killing dogs.
Yeah.
So with your labs, if how should I cut this off? I'm gonna say if you can never get a retriever again at all, no labs, no Goldens, no Chessies, none of that, flat coated retrievers, and none of them. And you had to get a new bird dog. What breed are you going to go to? It can be pointing, even though we're on the Go Flush Yourself podcast. You can whatever you want, but you still want to go hunting. What would you go after?
So, I've been toying with the idea of a Vizsla.
Okay.
I do obedience, like trialing obedience, not just like, oh, sit and stay classes. Um, uh, like high obedience classes. And some of my friends in class have a couple of Vizslas that they bird hunt with. And just seeing them and watching them, I think, you know, it'd be kind of cool to mess with the pointing side. But also, I don't know if I would want a dog that, you know, they're called Velcro Vizslas. I don't know if I want a dog that's that attached to me. I like my dogs a little independent to some extent.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be kind of fun. I'd also like to, I haven't really hunted behind any other breeds before, so I'd really like to hunt behind some breeds just to kind of see, you know, are we missing out or, you know.
Yeah. Maybe like one of those wire-haired Griffons or something like that.
Something.
Yeah,
Might be kind of fun.
So you'll have to, for listeners who don't know, we're all in the same Pheasants Forever chapter. And last year, at the end of the year, we did a big, I think it was right when you two started coming to the meetings or right before, I can't remember now, the timing, but we did a big like hunt where like, a bunch of us went out with all of our dogs, like then the last weekend of pheasant season and just tromped around through Franklin County and got into all sorts of different birds. And we just had a good time. So maybe next time you have to come. And it was really just springers and labs and one GSP.
There was a pointer. Yeah, there was one pointer.
There was one GSP and a puppy Griffon that was really little and just following each of us through the weeds. It was fun. But yeah, you have to do it next time. You can see some different dogs. I think we all had a great time. So I think we're going to try to do that again. Maybe once or twice next season. But yeah, anyhow. That gets you some more.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd like to have behind a Springer just to see, you know, how they are.
Yeah.
I love their little attitudes, their personalities are just so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. When I like my brother and I, we always hunt together, and we hunt together a lot. And he has labs, and I grew up with labs. Him and I, we both did as kids. And when I first got my Springer, she looks when she's just running in the field, she looks like a birdie lab. Like she looks like a lab when they're on birds. And he's like, how do you know when she's birdie? She looks like she's always on a bird. And I'm like, we're gonna find out, man. I don't know. And sure enough, it did look different, and it became pretty clear. But he's like, she's just so happy around the field, like she's on something all the time. Like she's on something. As Jared's attesting with his Springer as well.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. If you could give any piece of advice to someone looking for, they're like, you know what, I'm sold. Thanks, Dennin and Taylor. I want to go get a lap. What one piece of advice, I mean, you can do one or two or whatever, but what advice would you give them if they're looking for a puppy? If they want to take it, we'll focus on upland, but if they do upland and waterfowl, that's why they want a lab.
I really think, because like I didn't really know anything about labs and pedigrees before all this, and if I could go back, I think I would try to join local groups just to talk to like-minded individuals and kind of see like, hey, this is what I'm looking for in a lab. And most people that have been around labs and know all the breeders here locally and out of state, they're going to try to point you in the right direction, and they're going to be really helpful. I think I know a lot of people that just say, oh, I'm going to Google lab breeders and I'm just going to click on one and, oh, they've got pretty labs, so I'm going to go with them. When in reality, I like to do that anyways, just to see what's out there. But most of those breeders, they're not health testing, and they're not really backing up their pedigrees very well. So I think just getting out to like clubs like Pheasants Forever, or I'm part of like Sand and Sage Hunting Retriever Club. Even if they don't want to join, just messaging someone like, hey, I'm looking for a lab puppy. Like, can you help me? And I think a lot of us would be really willing to point them in the right direction. So I think just reaching out, like, don't be scared to reach out to people to ask, because all of us are pretty willing to help. You might come across one or two grumpy old men that don't really care, but the rest of us, I think, for the most part, want to help people.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's really easy. I mean, it's fun to also get online and look at all the different dogs that are out there and different breeding programs. But you're right. Once you get plugged into that community, you start to really learn. People start to know you and like what you want out of a dog. It really does. It really helps. Yeah, for sure. And also, like you said about, those labs look good. And like, it seems like every breeder, especially with labs for some reason, and because there's so many and the genetics are so diverse, like they all have their kind of own look, and everyone in their own head has their own vision of what a lab looks like. And while I agree that you should like how your dog looks, like that's important. It's not like my dog's ugly, but it hunts well. Like I don't like how it looks. Like, it plays a role. But maybe not ugly, but I don't like the, whatever. But I often will be on a website and I go, these labs are really good looking labs. And then I do more research, like, they wouldn't be the ones for me though if I were to get one, because what they're breeding for isn't lined up with what I want. And so, but that it's still there, like, but they're so pretty. It's tough to put that down. So
and then you'll have the breeder that slips in a silver lab here and there, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Do we want to talk silver labs?
But I mean, if you want to.
Weimaraners? Where are we going?
Yeah.
We don't have to get into
the
that.
Same thing, right?
We'll get into that. Maybe if we come back on, we'll have
okay.
Really stir the pot.
If you want the real Taylor's thoughts.
Oh boy.
Real thoughts of Taylor. We'll talk. All the controversial topics out there. Pointy labs, silver labs.
Yeah. Bring it on.
Silver pointy labs.
Silver pointy labs. There it is. The comment sections will be crazy. It'll be great.
Those words really should just not go together.
Someone has a silver pointy lab and they love it. I'm sure it's out there.
Oh, I'm sure it's the best dog, the best hunting dog ever.
Oh
yeah, there's probably clubs of people that have silver pointy labs. All
right up there with a Labradoodle.
There's that. Yeah, labs have all the controversy, like little Labradoodles. The whole thing. Awesome. Well, Jared, did you have any other questions for them?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dennin and Taylor, thanks for coming on and talking labs with us. Like, we haven't had a truly lab-centered episode before, so I appreciate you coming on because they are so popular, and they definitely are the most popular flush/retrieving breed. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Go Flush Yourself podcast. You can continue the conversation on our Discord server. The link is in the podcast description. You can also follow along with Matt and Jared on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to support the podcast, you can subscribe to the Go Flush Yourself on Patreon for the easy monthly cost of only $2. You can also check out our shop and pick up a Go Flush Yourself sticker, shirt, or other merchandise. All links are in the podcast description.